From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
It's springtime when everything's starting to bloom, including allergies, when many folks are experiencing symptoms earlier and longer. Machinery Pete with the pulse on prices in used equipment markets.
Stick around, folks. Coming up, I've got some amazing tractor prices at auction last week to share.
And planting in a war zone.
It is a big tragedy for Ukraine and for the world.
We talk one-on-one with a Ukrainian farmer trying to stay alive and work in the middle of it all. Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, farmers in Ukraine are waging a battle of their own to plant crops. This morning, we're taking an in-depth look at the situation in the country for farmers. Now, one Ukrainian farm leader saying he expects at least a 30% cut in spring plantings because of the war, with farmers desperately trying to get their hands on fertilizer, pesticides, and diesel. As Hala Gurani reports, the cut in planting could have a ripple effect around the world.
On this farm in western Ukraine, and many like it across this country, the future of food security for hundreds of millions of people around the world is being determined. 1/3 of the world's most fertile soil is in Ukraine, according to the UN. So what doesn't grow here, or what this country is unable to export because of the war, local officials tell me will cause ripple effects around the globe. The repercussions of the war in Ukraine began to impact everything, Volodymyr Romaniak tells me, including all agricultural operations inside and outside the country, including the sowing season. Western Ukraine, where this farm is located, accounts for a relatively small portion of total wheat and corn farmland. The most productive farms lie in the hottest conflict areas of the country, like Izium in eastern Ukraine. Satellite photos show the extent of the destruction in and around that city. In one video, Russian artillery positions and Ukrainian counterattacks are visible in a field. And the Ukrainian agriculture minister tells me the impact on this year's crops will be devastating. We are told on this farm near Lviv that most farmers in the conflict zone are writing this year off completely because it's simply too dangerous to work the land. On top of climate change and rising inequality, the Russian invasion will deepen poverty and increase instability thousands of miles from where missiles and shells are causing devastation. Back on the farm outside Lviv, we meet Pavlo Kovalchuk, who manages the fields and the other crops that grow here, like apple, plum, and walnut trees. Are you ready for the longer term? If this war lasts a long time, are you ready to dig in and keep working?
We have to be ready because we have no other choice. I and all other farmers who work with me here are ready because we are responsible for providing food, not only for Ukraine, but for other countries.
Beyond production issues, there is also a shortage of workers. Some have joined the fight against the Russian army. Others have moved to safer areas or left the country altogether.
So how do you farm in the middle of a war zone? I got the chance to speak to one farmer trying to do just that. Nick Gordachuk is a farmer near Kyiv, and he told me a harrowing story of trying to keep his family safe while keeping his business going, all while trying to keep people fed.
We left house on 24th of February when Russians invaded Ukraine. And because of the shellings, and for about 22 days, we could not come back to Kyiv because it was too dangerous. Now my family is safe in the western Ukraine, and I came back to Kyiv because I have a farm of about 600 hectares where we grow winter wheat, seed potatoes, table potatoes, maize, and soybeans. Part of Ukraine is occupied by Russian troops, so many farmers don't have today access to their fields. And when you say no access, it means you can hear the shelling, you can see the missiles, and some tractors can get into on the mines which are in the field, and that's the most dangerous situation. The biggest challenge today, we have availability of people, because Ukraine has suffered tremendously. We have about 3 million people who left Ukraine abroad, escaping from the war. We also have about 7 million people inside Ukraine who have moved from occupied area to the western part of Ukraine, as we call internal immigration. And that's a big problem to find tractor drivers or workers for the farm. Second problem we are facing is availability of diesel.
If this all stopped today and we could come up with some sort of resolution there, how long do you think it would take to get back to normal? Whatever normal will be.
Well, it's very difficult to, just like you said, very difficult to estimate what normal is. We have, for many farms, we have already lost some time. And it's not that you can just go into the field and start planting. And as you know, Ukraine has very big fields. For example, we in our farm, we have 200 hectares of potatoes. In order to start planting on 15th, 20th of April, we should have started in March to prepare soil, to put fertilizer, etc. Another challenge which we have today is that psychologically this generation of children, they will never be like they've been before the war. And we see now children who come out from the war zone, they are scared when they hear any sound which looks like, like a plane which is flying above their head, etc. And it is a big tragedy for Ukraine and for the world to see what Putin and his regime is doing here.
AgriTalk's Chip Flory also speaking recently with an ag industry representative in Ukraine. His name, Yevgeny Tkachenko.
For now, Ukraine is became a one nation. Everyone, farmer, no matter where you work, try to help our army. Or to go to army and fight with Russian troops, right, or to help as a volunteer, or to build something for army, I don't know, but everyone is trying to help.
Now, Yevgeny is saying he wants Americans to know they are strong, they are fighting, and they will win. You will find both of our interviews with Nick and Yevgeny at our website, agweb.com, and on the AgDay Facebook page. An update on a case we've been following for a while now. Federal prosecutors are dropping charges against 5 of 10 defendants accused of chicken price fixing. The move coming after jurors deadlocked. That resulted in a second mistrial in the case. Justice Department lawyers asked a U.S. district judge to dismiss charges against the 5 defendants to streamline the case. Now, the judge agreed. The government plans to go forward with a third trial against the remaining 5 defendants. They include 3 former Pilgrim's Pride executives and 2 with Claxton Poultry. We seem to be falling in a familiar weather pattern right now. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us. And Matt, it's not good news for much of the West.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. And starting out with our weather watch here, kind of what we're looking at as we head through this week. And we are going to be watching for above average temperatures returning to the west and more rainfall. But most of the rain is going to be in the eastern half of the country, just like it has been over the past few weeks. And then if you look at that last bullet point there, we have a very warm month of April expected. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. Taking a look, though, at our map on Monday, a storm system moving up into the Midwest and the Great Lakes, bringing some rain showers and more rain down along that cold front into places in Texas and Oklahoma. Another system also moving into the Pacific Northwest. That'll bring more rain out there. It's going to be very warm in the Four Corners region this week with just a little bit of a chance of rain heading through today. And that's all because of this jet stream right here. You'll see a few dips in the jet stream as we head through the first half of the week, and then a large ridge building out in the west. That's going to keep the heat locked in before another system will move in by the weekend. And those clear skies are helping folks to be able to spot the northern lights. Jenny Hagan snapping this terrific photo near LaPorte, Saskatchewan. Many folks have been able to see the aurora borealis lately thanks to a strong geomagnetic storm that developed due to a solar flare. Very cool to see. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Up next, we focus on interest rates and housing and why farmers need to keep an eye on it. And later, we welcome the signs of spring, but not the signs of allergies, why those symptoms seem to be getting worse for more people.
The 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge, presented by Case IH, is underway. Who's still in the game? To find out, head to AgWeb now through April 4th to check the leaderboard.
We're joined today by Tommy Grisafi with Advanced Trading. Tommy, as we talk about kind of the overall big picture of global markets, one of the things that we've been keying in on is interest rates and how that could impact our borrowing cost, especially for farmers and really even the housing market in this country.
Great question, Clinton. The decade of low rates since we started QE1, QE2, QE3, a bunch of programs, I don't even know what the heck the Fed was doing. Interest rates have really went up, my friend. 2s, 5s, 7s are trading higher yields than 10. I went and talked to a commercial loan broker the other day in New Buffalo, Michigan. I said, how's housing going? Well, interest rates have went up, and that's slowing people on these large purchases. Now, there's a lot of people in America who need a home, but the day of the 3% mortgage is gone for quite a while. And folks, I can't feel bad for anyone. We had 10, 12 years to lock in record low interest rates. The Fed kept interest rates at zero for 2 years and a few days, and they just recently raised it a quarter. But the market's gotten ahead of itself, and real interest rates that trade at the Chicago Board of Trade, the 2-year note, the 5, the 10, the 30, interest rates have went up, and it doesn't look like it's going to slow down as the Fed pumps the brakes to try to calm inflation, my friend.
Yeah, obviously inflation, a big part of this conversation. As we look at these interest rates and how much that could impact some of the borrowing, the last time we did this, it really put the brakes on the overall economy. Do you see that happening here as far as really a hard stop?
Well, if you study history and you look at what the Fed did back in the 80s, Volcker, he said he was going to stomp inflation, and he did it, but he put us into a recession. And so you're going to hear this word brought up a lot, stagflation, and that's going to get continued to be brought up. The conundrum, my friend, is how do you raise interest rates after we're coming out of a global pandemic and now we're into a war? So as they raise interest rates, the days of easy liquid money are being pulled back. Now, there's still a lot of money, and there's still a lot of money in the ag community. But if you have an operating note, and many of you do, or if you're going to buy a piece of land or equipment, the price to borrow, the amount of money you need that you're going to need to buy that item's expensive, and then the cost of interest has went up on that too. And at some point, it starts to drag. It makes people think a little bit harder about buying a big ticket item. Just a few years ago, you could buy an incredible amount of house for a $2,000 a month payment. Now that payment's closer to $2,500 a month, and that's just interest being paid.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tommy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate
the insights as always. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up in just a minute.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Grisafi at 800-664-4383. AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by April 30th with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And Matt, looking at the drought monitor here, obviously some places need some rain. Any chance they get that this week?
There'll be a little bit in the northern Rockies, but most of that is going to happen again this week east of the Mississippi. We are going to see more rain this week in places like Texas, Oklahoma, even Kansas and the Midwest, but most of it going to occur right there where we kind of have that hole and no drought conditions. It's going to remain mostly dry back here again, and temperature is going to be warming up as well. It might remain pretty warm all the way through the month of April. So that's a look at the drought monitor, and here's a look at the precipitation this week. Most of it again from Texas and Oklahoma all the way through the Gulf Coast and up the East Coast. A little bit more here in northern portions of the Great Lakes and even the Midwest, and some precipitation, Pacific Northwest all the way through the northern Rockies as well. Again, here's the jet stream, pretty zonal to start off, but we are going to see a couple of storm systems move their way on in, and you can really see that starting to happen by Tuesday and into Wednesday. Big dip in the jet stream through the Midwest and the Great Lakes. Look at that ridge though. A lot of warm air coming in the west, keeping it dry as well. That looks like it could be broken down by the weekend. Another system could move into the northwest. That's something we'll have to watch late this week, but another chillier shot of air off towards the east. And if we look here at our temperatures this week, below normal, where we're going to see a lot of this precipitation, and up in the Pacific Northwest. Meanwhile, above normal there in the west and all the way up the east coast. Precipitation, we've seen a lot of it in the east. We're going to see more, and below normal back in the west this week. Here's a look at April, though, as a whole. Below normal temperatures there in the Pacific Northwest, but the rest of the country looking like we will be above normal. And then here's a look at that precipitation outlook. It's going to stay warm and dry back here in the west. Cooler and above normal precipitation in the Pacific Northwest as well as in the Great Lakes and parts of the Ohio Valley. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Toledo, Ohio, mostly cloudy and a chance of showers, a high of 51 degrees. Abilene, Texas, warm with thunderstorms, likely a high of 78 degrees. And Redmond, Oregon, breezy with rain, likely a high of 54.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
From housing to trucks, everything is costing more these days, including tractors. Thankfully, Machinery Pete is here to put it all in perspective.
Well, I've seen periods of red-hot auction pricing before. I remember 1996, I remember late 2007 into early 2008, and of course late 2012 into early 13. But folks, I've never seen anything like what we're experiencing right now. It's the depth of strong auction prices that are just incredible. Now let me give you a couple of tractor examples from last week. Last Thursday on a farm auction in Westminster, Maryland, this 2009 Case IH Magnum 245 with 3,679 hours on it sold for $129,000. Now that's the third highest auction price ever on a Magnum 245. And by the way, almost the highest in 9 years. But get this, if we isolate to Magnum 245s with over 3,000 plus hours sold at auction, the 7 highest prices ever have all come in the past year, and 5 of the 7 highest in the past 4 months. Now 2 days earlier last week on an online farm auction out of Galesburg, Illinois, this 2012 John Deere 9410R, 543 hours on it, so for $315,000. That's a record high auction price by $65,000. And folks, the 3 highest auction prices ever on 9410Rs, all in the past 2 months. And I'll leave you with the stat on the iconic John Deere 4240 model, which I've seen over 1,000 of them sold over my 32 plus years tracking auction prices. And folks, of the 13 highest auction prices ever on 4240s, 7 have come in the last 4 months.
For many, spring is a welcome sign of warmer days ahead when flowers bloom and leaves return to trees. But for others like myself, it's the start of seasonal allergies. And as Barb Consiglio reports on behalf of the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, if you think your symptoms are getting worse these days, you might be right.
As the weather warms, Michaela Martin braces for the stuffy nose, watery eyes, and headaches that come with allergy season.
I definitely notice my allergies change when the seasons either come earlier or we kind of have a little bit of a surprise spring, then go back to winter and then back to spring again.
It's something that's becoming an issue for an increasing number of allergy sufferers. Dr. Kara Wada, an allergist immunologist at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, says allergy seasons are getting longer due to climate change.
The time between our thaw and our freeze is much longer, and so the plants have longer to reproduce and produce more pollen during that time.
At the same time, increased development and traffic in large cities also promotes higher pollen counts. This not only affects longtime allergy sufferers, but Dr. Wada says she's seeing many patients who are experiencing symptoms for the first time.
If we're able to start allergy medications and treatments early, we really keep those horses in the barn and get a much better control of symptoms with less medication.
To stop this progression, Dr. Wada recommends hitting allergies from 3 treatment angles. First, by minimizing exposure. Second, by using long-acting over-the-counter antihistamines. And finally, for those with severe symptoms, immunotherapy such as allergy shots to actually improve your body's response to allergens.
Now I just take a daily over-the-counter medication and live symptom-free pretty much with my allergies.
At the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, this is Barb Consiglio reporting.
And our thanks to The Ohio State University for sharing that story. Now, scientists are continuing to do more research on allergies. In fact, they've found over 100 new allergens in just the past 3 years. And that's going to wrap us up for today's episode of Ag Day. From all of us here, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.